Well, good morning, Melinda, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our I Am Woman audience this morning, talking about all things curiosity and how to make curiosity a superpower. I was really intrigued when I read your bio. Also, really excited because it's not a topic that I've really explored. So, welcome. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, Cheryl, let me just thank you so much for having me. I am excited to talk to you about this because I know that a lot of people become very curious when I start talking about curiosity. So yes, hi, I'm Melinda, and let's explore all about curiosity. How did I get into it? Essentially through just being curious. I'll give you a bit of a brief background. Hi, Sarah.
Hi
Nice
there.
to see you. Um, Essentially, had health issues, and those health issues led me to believe that I was sort of suffering from early dementia. So I took myself off to the doctors, and in the sort of 10 minutes that a doctor has to diagnose what is essentially a lifetime of complexity, because that's what stress is, it's a lifetime of complexity. Essentially, the doctor said to me, well, we'll put you on antidepressants, which really had nothing to do with the symptoms. So I ended up really exploring what was wrong with me. I left the doctors thinking to myself, that's not an answer, putting me on antidepressants. I wanted to take control of my situation, not diminish my power. So that really allowed me to ask questions which became good questions. I started to look at rather than sort of, well, initially it was kind of like, okay, what is wrong with me? What's really going on? And then it was a case of, okay, well, how can I improve this? And that was really pivotal. The question, how can I improve this? And it's something that I continually talk about because that question is what empowers us to move forward, whereas the question, what's wrong with me, doesn't. And so uh, I started to really notice that I was taking control of my situation. And I was studying quite a lot, finding out, okay, how does the brain work? How did I get in this situation? Um, and then that led me really to quieten my mind because at the time I didn't realize just how noisy my mind was. I was really suffering with not just brain fog, but I was also suffering with monkey mind. So that is the concept of the self-talk, which just got completely out of control, and self-criticism more importantly. And what is really interesting about our medical industry is that when we talk about the monkey mind and trying to remain calm, how can you be calm? How can you quieten your mind if it's out of control? And of course, the very first thing that people say, well, just become mindful. Well, I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to be mindful when you really do struggle with the mind being overactive, it's like trying to swim in treacle. You just can't do it. I know I couldn't do it. So I asked myself, okay, why? Why is this? Why have I got these? I didn't know at the time it was monkey mind. What's going on with my mind? And again, how can I improve this? So very soon I realized that I was asking those two questions, what's going on and how can I improve this? Uh, I was able, through those questions, to quieten my mind, not from the concept of meditation. But you see, what's really interesting about curiosity is the outcome is mindfulness. In fact, you cannot be mindful without being curious because the mind has to think of something. It's always thinking. It very rarely cannot think at all. But what happened in that process is I realized that I completely quietened my mind so that I did have moments of complete quiet. I was able to meditate doing transcendental meditation, which is quite difficult to do. So I was able to quieten my mind for, an hour or so every day. And then so essentially, I would say that initially what triggered all this was a perfect storm of events and then a divine storm. And the divine storm is that when I think the universe tests you. If for me, there was quite a number of issues, one of which was cancer. And then I went into forced menopause because I had everything taken out on my women's bits, and that was horrific. I remember a friend of mine saying to me, "Well, how did you manage to get through so much?" I mean, they could see just how difficult my situation was. And I said, I don't know, every time I came up against something, and I say against something because it's like menopause is the gift that keeps on giving. It's it continually throws the minute you think you've got over one thing, another thing happens. Well, I was like, okay, well, what is this and how can I improve it? And again, I was able to take control. And it's really led me here to finding out, okay, uh, what is our role? How can we empower ourselves even more, not just as women, but as human beings? And I think really the whole point of curiosity is completely overlooked. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But essentially, what's really, really important is that I encourage people to ask questions, not just questioning me, but questioning themselves, questioning their thoughts, questioning everything that society talks about. Question it. Start thinking to yourself, because the minute you start thinking for yourself and to yourself, you start realizing that quite a lot of the stuff that we've been taught, certainly as kids, is all wrong. We've got it all wrong. And so it's about actually starting to go, okay, what if I could think differently about this situation? That then leads you to start thinking differently, that enables you to start looking at things in ways that can start really helping you shift your whole power. So this is not just about asking questions, really. What this is about is empowerment, total empowerment. And that's one of the things that curiosity will do. So that with that, I'll hand it back.
I'm really intrigued with regards to where curiosity sits in the mind and how the brain copes with the whole subject of curiosity. Because I'm sure lots of us who are here this morning recognize we spend 95% of our time in our subconscious mind and only 5% in our conscious mind, where I believe curiosity sits, because curiosity is in the here and now, asking and really challenging questions to ourselves. But to think that we are going to be spending 95% of our normal day just running old programs and just 5% in this almost like optimum state for curiosity really gets you, you almost want to shake yourself, it's almost like as though you want one of those chairs that shakes every now and again to bring you back to, being curious or being in the here and now, as opposed to just running old programs. So I'd be really interested to know, because Sarah's joined us online and so has Karen. I'd love to know what has sort of sparked their interest in this topic this morning with regards to curiosity. Where does curiosity sit in their lives? So Sarah, will come to you first. And Karen, you've got time to think about it then, because we're going to go in speak to Sarah first. So I'm sure Sarah's very curious because she's a data analyst. So I'm sure you're going to have to be really curious to be a really good data analyst. So Sarah, would you like to share with us why you're interested in curiosity? And I believe oh, you've just come off mute. That's great.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why?
So you're right. As a data scientist, I have to be investigating trends and patterns all the time, and I think I have the kind of brain that looks for patterns and matching. And in a new situation where something doesn't seem to be working quite as I expect it to, I'm always comparing for past situations. What have I learned about other similar situations that could help me here? What are the clues that I need to look for? And so I'm curious about I guess the larger things that we might see, the larger trends in society, and in my work in government, with projecting all different kinds of scenarios for how people might behave. Um, but where I struggle, I guess, is I would definitely count myself as an introvert, and while people's behavior as a group might interest me, people's behavior individually, I can sometimes be a little bit put off by, I suppose, if that when there are interpersonal situations where someone's doing something that doesn't seem logical to me, then rather than trying to fit it into my model of understanding, I can sometimes just kind of think, well, um, you're behaving in an illogical way, and I don't really know what um I would like to be more curious about people and less judgmental, I suppose. So rather than just thinking um you're doing something differently from the way I would do it, therefore I don't understand, and I'm just going to move on to something that I do understand. I think that would be a good way for me to look at 2025 and the year ahead, because I need to be interacting with decision makers and persuading them to do business with us effectively. And sometimes if they make a decision that doesn't appear to make sense to me, then I need to dig into why that is, and be curious about what's led them to go down the path they're going, or to take what I would, as a data scientist, think is not the correct path for their project, rather than sitting in a rather unhelpful situation of saying, well, I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to talk to you anymore about it because you've done something that is not what I agree with. I need to find a way to use that curious conversation to come round and ask them, I'd love to know more about what's led you to that decision. Can we talk a bit more about the logic that you've used there? There's obviously some information you're taking into account that I'm not aware of. How can we come to some kind of shared understanding there?
And are you curious about your own thinking?
Or about why I shut down like that? Um, yes, yes, because I think that's my way of dealing with monkey mind, is to say, well, there are some things in the world that I can understand, and there are lots of things that I can't. So the ones that I can't understand, I'm just going to silence, turn the volume right down on those, to preserve my own mental bandwidth. I think I wouldn't be able to cope with all of it. So therefore, the things that make sense, I think they call it reinforcement, like when you're stuck in your own bubble, or if there's cognitive dissonance, if there's someone where I just completely disagree with them, and the values that they're using don't chime with my values either, it's far easier for me to just go turn their volume down and ignore that person, and walk away, than to go, whoa, that's interesting. Why have they come to completely the opposite conclusion that I've come to, rather than thinking, can I try and understand something about that? I just think, no, they're just not my person.
Interesting. Melinda, what would you like to add on that?
Gosh, Sarah, you brought up so many points. I think, first of all, what I would say is that in the time that I've tried to deconstruct curiosity, what's interesting is that there are over 70 benefits. And by the way, now curiosity is determined by the World Economic Forum as the number one cognitive meta skill.
Mm.
Right? It outperforms every single. In fact, you cannot have any other metacognitive skill without curiosity. It is impossible, right?
Mm.
So if you want to improve your ability to rationalize, if you want to improve your ability to be able to start questioning other people's concepts, or even in terms of you even dealing with your own mental uh, constructs, then you need curiosity. So the question is, how are you using it? And what I would say is that, I mean, I'm very happy to go into more detail about how curiosity works. But very first thing that curiosity will do, because it is a natural mechanism, but what's going on there is that essentially you've probably got certain time restraints, and so therefore you can only do so much at any one time. But
Mm.
what's really interesting about curiosity, and people don't understand this, they think that by going into curiosity that they're actually going to be wasting time, but actually it's now proven to be far more productive to be more curious. And so when you're in those situations, it's important to start looking at the kind of questions that you're asking and how you're asking those questions. The interesting thing about curiosity is how you're asking the questions, not so much the fact, because you can ask curiosity questions, but you want to ask the best curiosity questions. And so it's about understanding how a question is formed. And I'll just really touch on that. But essentially, the very first thing you need to question is, what is your intention How are you asking that question? In other words, how are you constructing that question that will make the difference? So things like why is a really bad question. Now, I know that Simon Sinek talks about the why and how important the why is, but in terms of our mental abilities, the question why it becomes more of a it starts to trigger more emotions than you want. So because the brain is always looking for meaning, always looking for meaning. So when you're asking the why questions, that will then help you try and understand the why of a situation, but that might not necessarily get you where you want to get to. So it's really, really important to start looking at the how. And by the way, curiosity is the how. What I mean by that, it really does enable you to open up. So, like I said, I've touched on quite a few things, but the one thing that curiosity does also do, just so you're aware, it actually reduces your cognitive biases. So the better the questions that you ask, the more you can actually reduce your cognitive biases. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you.
I just wonder, Melinda, because we're all entrepreneurs on here, have you developed a curiosity journal? We got the queen of all things publishing here, and I was just wondering if we could have like a curiosity pack of cards, so every day we can pull a card to get us stimulated curiosity wise, yeah? So there we are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's certainly so many things that you can ask yourself. And it's interesting because when I met Stephen Bartlett well before, well, he don't, I think he just finished his filming of the very first series that he was in for Dragon's Den. And interestingly enough, when I spoke to him and I spoke to him at length, like we had about 20 minutes together, which was really, really wonderful. And I said to him, "So how does curiosity play out in your daily life?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And it was really funny that he was not even aware about how curious he was. But look at the podcast, look at the questions that he asks. Even more interestingly, he then developed cards for interviews. So no, I haven't actually developed anything because I've developed something else. But that is
Oh,
it's
you've got the conversation cards. Great.
yeah, the
Yeah.
conversation cards. Yeah. But
Yeah.
now it just makes me laugh that he had no idea about how curious he was, and he had no idea about how important curiosity is in his rise to fame, you know?
Really, we'll come to Karen. Karen, oh gosh, Karen, you must be so curious because you must be curious with regards to people's stories and the books they want to write and their experiences. How does curiosity show up in your life?
Because I'm just pure nosy. I think it's that whole thing of curiosity killed the cat, satisfaction brought it back. I think it's interesting you've been talking about this because I'm listening to Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway in the car on the way over. And for me, they were talking about the pain and the power spectrum. And it's curiosity is very much in the power. It's very empowering. And for me, it's shown up mainly with just two questions. The first question is, what if? So what if I tried doing this? Or what if this character did this? Or what would happen if, And then the other one was, why not? So instead of saying why, it's why not? Because then you give you the answer of why you're not going to do it. And then you can empower yourself to actually flip that around. And that's been very, very useful in my life. And I think why not for me has actually saved me on more than one occasion where why not? Why can't I do this? Okay, these are my reasons. And knowing them and looking at them, you know that they're just pure fear, pure BS. Yeah, you're in your own head. And then flipping around and finding some way of empowering yourself out of it. And it's just so empowering to do that. So for me, it's always about those two questions. What if, from a creative writing, from just a curiosity point of view, but also why not? Because I find that's actually more empowering than just asking why.
Over to you, Melinda.
I'm so glad you brought that book up because I'm just going to shatter some some illusions. Curiosity will overcome fear. In fact, there was a very, I can't remember the guy's name, but he actually said, um, curiosity will kill, curiosity, I can't, it's something about bravery, but anyway, it is essentially that curiosity is the mechanism for bravery. Now, you do not need to feel the fear and do it anyway when you're in curiosity. So that null and voids that book. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. And the reason why is because you then move into potentiality. So whilst your brain is very, very clever, when you're saying, okay, when you're trying to get out, so as entrepreneurs out into uncertainty, in fact, during the pandemic, chaos theory experts determined that the only way to navigate uncertainty and chaos is through curiosity or ambiguity for that matter, because I know that Sarah mentioned about ambiguity.
Yeah.
So how you navigate that is through curiosity. And what it does is that let me take you through the science of it potentially. You ask a question, which is it's got to be the right question. It's got to be a question that's got an intention. That is key. So when you have an intention, you want to be sort of saying, well, okay, how can I break out of my normal thinking? Or more importantly, what is the goal? And so that's your intention. And once you have that intention, boom. So we now have a hit of dopamine. So dopamine is, by the way, not associated with actual receiving the reward. All right. It's the driver to find the reward. That's a big, big difference. That's why you can feel the fear and do it anyway, because you're not actually feeling the fear. It downregulates your stress hormones. And so now you're in a very, very positive neurological position. You've got your whole body working for you. So you've got all these wonderful hormones actually working for you to drive you towards the goals you seek, because you've got that dopamine and other feel-good hormones, but particularly dopamine. And as you're doing that, you're reducing your stress hormones, because curiosity reduces your stress hormones. So you don't need to feel the fear. And what's amazing is that as you're doing this, you are now engaging your neocortex part of the brain. It opens also up your filtering system, which is your reticular activating system. So now you've got more information coming in, because don't forget, you're reducing your stress levels. You're opening up your brain's ability to be able to rationalize more effectively. So you're thinking more effectively. All of these things help you to get to your goals much, much, much faster. So the question you really want to be asking is, how can I get to my goal much faster? By asking a better question. So every time you're asking a question, you're engaging your neocortex, but then it will take you through your subconscious mind. But again, you can go, okay, well, I can still think that. I can still have that in the back of my mind. Or if I'm in ambiguity, how can I then rationalize that in a way that gets me towards my goal much, much faster? So essentially what you're doing is you're breaking all parameters. You're breaking through and you're getting into potentiality. And that's what I really encourage everybody to get into. But you see, when we get to a certain point in our life, our subconscious mind just takes over. And in fact, I've even noticed that it can even knock out just your ability to move forward. So the whole concept of even procrastination. Well, what it's doing is the subconscious mind is so clever, it can even knock out free will. But you can rationalize that with curiosity. You can actually even really, because essentially that's what procrastination is, by the way. Procrastination is we've just knocked out our free will. And all of this, by the way, stems from one thing: our inability to rationalize situations. And why is that? Because we've been taught that curiosity is a bad thing, right? In school. And by the way, Karen, That comment, that old parable, that phrase, which is curiosity killed the cat, was actually taken completely out of context. What thou care killed a cat, thou hast metal enough in thee to kill care. Nowhere was that curiosity mentioned. In fact, it was taken from Shakespeare, who stole it from another guy the year before.
course.
In and so and so that was taken completely out of context. What is care? Care is worry, not curiosity. So actually, that line was to improve your mettle through curiosity, to knock out worry, but instead, it was taken as a bad thing. But it's always been taken as a bad thing. You know, from very early on, look at Adam and Eve. Oh, curiosity was involved. Look at Pandora's box. Oh, guess what? Curiosity's there again. And it's always because we've been taught that curiosity is a bad thing, that we continue to believe that it is, and so therefore we don't use it. And by the way, when we start not using our curiosity like it's a muscle, it means that we're not using it, and so if you're not using it, you're losing it, right? So when we leave school, we've almost completely knocked out our curiosity altogether. Now, here's the thing. In terms of mental health, anyone noticed? Not just mental health has been rising completely disproportionately to even our medical industry's ability to deal with it. Well, they're not. They're managing it, which is not great either. And then on top of that, by the way, we now have a massive problem because we've now got the biggest killer of all disease, which is dementia. Dementia is the biggest killer now, right? Which, by the way, is overall stress. And there's been new science to talk about immunity, which causes Alzheimer's. Well, guess what? Curiosity has been proven to reduce dementia-related diseases because, going back to the fear concept, it reduces fear. So when we understand that by asking questions, the right questions, we're not only getting closer to our goals, we're in a healthier bodily, mentally state of mind, bodily state. But in addition, we're using the better part of our autonomic nervous system, and we are able to reduce our stress levels and reduce these very nasty chemicals which are potentially causing dementia-related diseases. So it is healthy to be curious as well. I hope that's
So
giving you.
is that about trying new things and being open to novel experiences and just exposing yourself to
Yeah,
building new pathways in your brain, effectively?
yeah. So you actually there are 5 different dimensions for curiosity, and that is just one of them. But yeah, definitely you are very much growing your brain. You're growing your neurons and forming bigger, bigger ideas, bigger potentiality. And then by reducing your stress levels, you're it's what I call getting out of probability and getting into potentiality. And this is where I believe that we need to be.
You mentioned that there were 5 neuro pathways, and that was one of them. What are the other 4? I'm being curious.
You can ask me that, and I've completely forgotten them. They are actually on my web. I think they're on the website, which is the worldcuriosityorganization.com. Go on there. The other thing is as well, I'm looking to do a survey so you can find out which curiosity you are, which dimension. That will be available on the website at some point in time. But I was putting that together because it's quite complex. We need to ask quite a lot of different questions in different ways to really determine the 5 different dimensions. I should know them off by heart, but I tend to forget. But that's the menopausal brain, which is, like I said, the gift that keeps on giving.
I have a question around daily curiosity. So how could we start off our days, perhaps it's first thing in the morning or before we go to bed at night to get our subconscious working on something while we're sleeping? How could we almost like invite curiosity in? Are there any exercises that we could embrace in our lives?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about going to sleep first. So if you've got a question to ask, that's something that is really troubling you, and then you really want to kind of deal with any kind of problem, that's the best time to do it is in the evening. And all you need to do is just ask the question. So what you're doing is you are giving it to your subconscious mind, but I do believe you're also opening up to your higher self. And I think that this is where we need to be more in tune with. So asking yourself just before bed, literally as you're kind of like snuggling into your bed sheets, get all nice and warm, and you should be nice and fluffy and cozy and cushy. And then, just ask that question. There's just the one question that you really is bothering you or that you're really struggling to overcome, and ask it in a way that is going to trigger your curiosity. But what's really interesting is that on the one hand, you could say that that could enliven you, but on the other hand, it can also allow you to rest easy, dependent on, I guess, your frame of mind, in as far as like, okay, I'm actually so what I would tend to do is I would actually frame it in a way that you're asking your higher self. Okay, higher self, as I fall asleep, as I'm asleep, this is the area I need help with. How can I blah 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 blah? And then that would then allow me to get a good night's sleep. In the morning or sometime during that day, or certainly within the next 48 hours, you'll probably find your answer because your higher self will find it for you. In terms of the morning exercises, I think one of the best things to do is just say, how can I get the very best of my day today? How can I be the best that I can be? How can I improve that little bit more? And it's interesting when I say that question, improve, or when I ask that, use the word improve, because a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people struggle with this kind of like, well, does that negate the person that I am? Absolutely not. And the reason why is because we are designed to improve. If you look at the human design, we are 100% designed to improve. So it's not a bad thing. It's kind of like when people ask me about the whole concept of want and desire. It's not a bad thing, right? And people have been led to believe it's a bad thing. They think that, who was it? Dr. Alan Watts. Not Alan Watts. Was it Alan Watts? Who was the guy who wrote Power Over Force? Power versus Force. Um, anyway, he developed a consciousness scale. By the way, he did include curiosity within that consciousness scale, which I find extremely interesting because I do believe that in order for you to actually go up the highest level of consciousness, you need curiosity. And the reason why is because you have to be able to question yourself. I mean, Sarah mentioned it earlier on. When you go through situations, you need to be able to then question, did I do it right? Could I have done it
Yeah.
better? There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. I actually think that's how we progress. And by the way, that transcends the concept of self-actualization into self-transcendence. And
Mhm.
that's where we want to be. I think people talk about self-actualization. Personally, I don't rate it. Yeah, it's great to be resilient, but to me, resilience is like the ability to swim in the muck with floaties on. Transcendence, on the other hand, is you're able to actually welcome the mud, welcome the muck, to be able to get to that point where you have absolute certainty in your abilities to be able to handle anything that comes your way. That is self-transcendence, and that's where I get my clients into. So I hope that kind of answers all the questions in a roundabout way.
I would love to know because I know you work very closely as well with manifesting. So I'd love to know what is the bridge between curiosity and manifesting your desires.
Yeah, well, I throughout the process of my becoming, if you like, the one thing that I really got into was manifestation, and I got into it in a way it was like, I'm going to prove it wrong. That was my lack of curiosity. I'm going to prove it wrong because this is a load of nonsense. What do you mean you can get whatever you want if you put your mind to it? It's like, no, no, because I was living in victimhood. And when you begin to start to look at how the brain processes things, I realized I was in victimhood. So I then started to challenge manifestation. I went down the scientific route. To this day, now I will say this hand on heart, and I have gone into the quantum mechanics of it. Yes, you can prove it in terms of neuroscience because you are programming the brain to find the goal, right? But in terms of quantum mechanics, it's a different matter altogether. And the reason why is because it falls down because of the observer effect, because you always have to have an observer. So who then becomes the observer? The question is, then we need to bring in oneness. Now, I know I'm just kind of like really throwing a whole heap of stuff to you right now, but we do need to understand that oneness is the key because we are all deeply intrinsically connected with each other and with the universe and with everything. And this is key. So I was like, okay, I really need to kind of stop with this manifesting nonsense. To me, I was manifesting, but it was so hit and miss. Um, that led me to curiosity. And I had to understand curiosity to be able to work out how it sits within the manifestation process, which is key, I think, to my whole journey. What's really interesting is that I realize that part of curiosity and manifestation, the most intrinsic element is intention. And what is intention? Your desire. But we've been taught that desire is a bad thing. No, it's not. It really isn't, right? And the reason why is because we always driven by the fact that we desire something, right? I mean, I've even had people throw the whole concept of monks. They don't desire anything. Yes, they do. They do desire to be able to find nirvana. That's what they desire. So for a monk to say, "Oh, I don't desire anything," is nonsense. It is. So this is a very, very important concept for people to realize. We are part of our makeup. Remember, I said is to improve, and to improve, we must desire. So it is, and by the way, those two elements make up curiosity. So now we have this whole concept of what it is that I desire, and desire is a really good thing. So I developed this app to be able to help people to understand this concept, to be able to uh, the whole point of the app is not just to be able to understand the signs that the universe is giving us, but to be able to say it is okay to want. It is okay to desire something. In fact, it is a good thing. It is a human it is a part of our human makeup. And in fact, I think it is the most fundamental element of our human design. And the reason why is because we would not be here in this evolutionary process without it, without desire and without curiosity. And those two elements make up the fundamental building blocks of everything.
I with manifesting, I always say to myself, what I desire desires me and it's on his way. And I'm almost like looking around, say, when is it going to come in? It's
Yes.
its way. I'd love to take some questions now. If Sarah and Karen have got any questions relating to this whole topic theme, whether it's curiosity or manifesting, I'd love to know, well, what is it that you'd like to ask Melinda about? Over to you, Karen.
I think it's mainly about that intersect between curiosity and manifesting, that you have to want something before you can manifest it. So where does curiosity come in? Is that just the bridge that gets you there?
Yeah, 100% it's the bridge. So, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be through a curiosity question. I'll give you an example. You can manifest just by saying, I wonder about something. And wonderment, by the way, is curiosity. So even if you're wondering, so I've done this loads of times. I was like, oh, I wonder how I can get tickets to an event, and boom, I've manifested it. So that's how easy it is, because the only thing that you need is the intention, the desire. The desire needs to be there. And that's and then it's just the way in which you ask for it, you know, that which is the curiosity section of it, if that makes sense. Does that answer it for you?
Yeah, it does actually. Thanks. I'm just writing it down.
I think it's so important to understand how important desire is in the human makeup. It is a really good thing to want something. And in fact, what I do now is encourage people to push themselves to want as big as you like, go as big as you like and want it. And the whole thing, the most astonishing thing is that the universe always says yes. We say no to ourselves. We say no because we don't believe it, because we've been led to believe that everything is hard, everything should be a struggle. But what curiosity does is break through all that, because all you got to do is like, well, I wonder how I'm going to get those tickets to that. I wonder how this is going to happen. And it just happens because the universe always says yes. But even still, and I've been on this journey a very, very long time, I still struggle to believe it because we're designed like this. And so what now I'm starting to realize is that everything we've been taught is wrong and we need to flip it. So every single thing that you're saying to yourself in your mind is like, you need to be able to flip it in a way that will give you what you want. And that's what the app does.
I love this saying, dream dreams big enough to grow into. I love that.
Oh my God, yes.
The cloud.
Yes.
Big enough to get in the cloud.
Yeah, and you know what? And every dream, every desire is yours now. And I tell you how it works because I've actually seen it. I do get these strange insights. So I have actually seen this process, which is quite bizarre. Um, the minute you ask for it, the minute you want it, right? It is the desire that creates it. So the desire creates it. Let me make sure that we get this right. So normally the desire is made up of two things, the thought and the emotion, right? So the thought itself is what creates it. I've seen it actually open up the Akashic records and come out. I've seen it be given. And then it is our emotions that attract it to us, meaning that when you say whatever I want wants me, so therefore essentially that second part of that sentence is that what you're doing there is you're reducing your ability to rationalize and to believe, because it is true that what you want wants you. And what's going on there, it's like it's forming in the other dimensions of reality. And by the way, we're only capable of seeing 3, 4, 5 dimensions of reality. I can see potentially 5 dimensions of reality, right? Most people can see 3 dimensions, or they are aware, they sense 3 dimensions of reality. But bearing in mind that quantum mechanics is determined up to 11 different dimensions. So we don't know a lot. We don't know a lot, right? We only know a very, very small portion of what's going on. So essentially, this thing that you think of it is given the minute and when I say the Akashic records, what I'm talking about, every possible thing exists across all dimensions of space-time reality. When you're in curiosity, you put yourself in superposition, meaning that you are able to open up these concepts and allow more to come in, more to flow, but also more to be created. So when you're in curiosity, you're creating this. It is creation itself, this desire. And so when you then think that it loves you, all you're doing is rationalizing that and putting yourself in a vibrational field that attracts it to you. But if you did nothing else, if there was no problem with belief and you just thought it, it would still come, because there's no resistance. It is the resistance that's all in here. It's our inability to believe that could it possibly be true. Because essentially what I'm saying, people, you're magic. We're all magic. Our concept of magic, right, but we are 100%. So it no longer becomes an idea that we are magic. It just is. This is how the universe is designed. This is how energy is designed.
Thank you. And Sarah, your question. Do you have any questions?
So how do you flip yourself into that fifth dimension?
Flipping myself into the fifth dimension is so what you're saying essentially there is getting yourself into a mind frame where you can open up the
Yeah.
concept of intuition and really getting in with your higher self, which by the way requires curiosity.
Mm.
So it's about deep curiosity. So when you're in flow, you will have experienced it.
Yes.
Yeah. Stephen Kotler talks about flow. Obviously, he wrote the book, Stealing Fire. But you cannot get into flow without curiosity. So the more curious you are, and I've experienced this where I've seen chakras and things like that, because the more curious I am, what I'm essentially doing, so this is what happens. This is what I'm talking about, it, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You're not feeling the fear. Because when you're in curiosity, you're in deep flow, right? You're just interested in that particular thing. It knocks out all other disbelief, right? So when you're in deep curiosity, you can then trigger what is known as your intuition. Now, when you're in intuition, now you have a connection with your higher self, and obviously with your higher self, with all that is. That's how you open up
And
what is.
is that a daily practice for you, or is it something that you?
I just do it. What I would say, it starts with using light energy, calling the light in. The more light I bring into my crown chakra, bring it down into my heart. Now, the more I expand it into my heart and grow it, and by the way, this is all just visualization and feeling, right? And the more that I'm into this deep feeling and bringing this light in, then I'm expanding that light. That's how I started to build my powers.
Mm.
It was as simple as that.
Great.
Wow. Wow, there's so much to take in. Have you written a book, Melinda, or are you website so we can sort of go and have a little nose afterwards?
Yeah, I'm highly dyslexic and I have ADHD, as you probably will have imagined, amongst other things. So for me to write a book has become very, very difficult. I have written hundreds of thousands of words, hundreds of thousands. What I need is an editor to be able to put it all into some kind of rationalized reading space. So I have actually been working with a very good editor who actually edited Joe Dispenza's work. Um, uh, in the meantime, what I wanted, and I think that this is really, really important, and this is what my drive for building the app was to be able to, on a daily basis, get people to learn as they go. I think that this is key. I think this is far more important than reading a book. So the whole idea of the app, which is called the Genie Manifestation Tracker, is to be able to get people to interact with the universe, right? So that they can start believing. Because the only thing stopping you, like I said, manifesting is you and your belief system, your thoughts, and and this old thing that keeps going on. You can't have it, you can't have it, you can't have it. The minute you know, I mean, I'm sure you will have all experienced the moment in time where you knew with absolute certainty something was going to happen, or you knew you got that job, or you knew whatever it was. I've had experiences where I've had, like, I remember getting a job years and years ago, and somebody said, no, it was something like there was like 100 people applied for this job, and I went for the interview, and I rang the guy, and I'm just saying, like, when are you going to send the paperwork? I knew I got the job even before he said I got the job. And actually, what he said to me down the phone, he said, "Oh, no, 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 I really apologize, but unfortunately you weren't successful." And I said, excuse me, you're talking to Melinda. I know I got the job." And he went, "Sorry, what's your name again?" And then he said, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was talking to somebody else. Yeah, you got the job. I knew I got the job." If ever experienced, I've had experiences, and I'm sure, maybe you have a competition. You just knew you were going to win it. You knew you were going to win it. And so the question becomes, how can you get into that frame of mind when there is no question whatsoever, right? Well, then you need to really start questioning the thought processes that you're going through that will determine the outcome. So again, it all comes down to curiosity. It just depends in which way in which you're asking the questions.
Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this session. I am driven. I need a curiosity journal. Karen, please. I need a curiosity daily journal. I think
Well, you know, the best person to create it is yourself.
I think it is
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think you need a curiosity kit where you've got the card deck with the journal and you package it as a curiosity kit.
Yeah, I think we could do that jointly if Melinda's not going to come out and play with us with it.
I know I'm very happy to come out and play with you. Absolutely. I can give you all the different questions to ask because I tell you, there are so many different ways of asking questions, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be a how, because I find one of the best things, in fact, on the app, I've just put the very first of the audios, which is ask formations. Ask formations. So, what do I mean by that? I mean that you ask questions in a way that assume that something is already yours. So, what that does is it's continually putting your brain and your body in a wonderful state. So there's so many ways of asking questions.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So I'd love some feedback, Sarah and Karen. So what are your takeaways, Karen? You're up on screen at the moment. What are your takeaways from this morning? How will you put it into work for yourself?
I think it's just one of those things where the universe just sends you everything at the same time. Just reading about the fear and coming to this, it's just crazy. I think for me, the biggest thing that comes up is trust. And I think that's the biggest blocker for manifesting. So when you learn to trust and trust the process, then everything, all the doors open up and all the windows open up. So I think there's also that in as well as curiosity. You have to be curious, but you also have to trust the process as well.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Sarah, over to you. What's your takeaway? What are you going to put into action?
Wow, Melinda, thank you very much because you've reopened a door in my mind that I'd closed a little while ago. I did physics at university. I did a master's at Oxford, so the quantum side of things is something that I briefly understood back then and then have almost forgotten about. But I was writing in my journal this morning. The possible path that I'm on for the next 5 years, and then the opposite of that, and then a completely radical different path. And you've reminded me that actually all three of those exist, and that by writing them out, there are there's many worlds that it's not that I've got to choose between them; it's that they could all simultaneously be coexisting, and the me that I am in this in this conversation can just pop across to one of those others if I can remember where that door is. So thank you.
It's been an
Great.
absolute delight, Melinda. Thank you so much for coming to join us in this mini I Am Woman hour. And we hope to see you at one of our I Am Woman events where we can I've met Melinda in the flesh, but other people can meet Melinda in the flesh and pin her down and ask their curiosity questions to her. We'll all have an absolute delight with that. So thank you very much. We've got a virtual round of applause for Melinda.
Thank you
So much.
Can I just leave you with something? Let me just go back to the 5 dimensions. I'll be very, very quick. Joyous exploration, deprivation sensitivity, stress tolerance, social curiosity, meaning, the curtain twitching, and sensitivity to shortcomings. That's why I always forget because they're big words.
Yeah, lovely.
And the other thing as well, just Karen, just make sure that you know that you're tuning in, because if something pops up more than once, if it pops up twice, you need to know it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Melinda. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning, or blessing us with your time this morning. And I can't wait to explore more things about curiosity. I'm curious about curiosity. So thank you very much and look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us online this morning. It's been a delight. Thank you. So look forward to seeing you all soon. Okay.
Easy. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.